Welcome to the Save Our Children podcast with Becky and Bridget. Today's guest is Becca McLean, God-fearing wife, mom, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Self-Defense teacher. We are so excited to bring some tips and tricks to the show to help keep yourself and your family safe. Thank you so much for joining us today. Can you please give our listeners a little bit of your background, kind of how did you end up on this journey of self-defense?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'd wanted to train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu since I watched my brother do it in the early 2000s. And I was like 14. I remember he used to go to Jiu-Jitsu all the time, and he would come home and he would teach me a move or something. And it was like women were not really doing it back then. And then I almost broke his knee. And then we stopped that. So it's been on my heart. Like, it's something that's been on my heart for a really long time. But I didn't start until after I'd watched my children do it for 4 years. I watched them train and compete, and they really inspired me. I was like, if they can do this at such young ages, they were 5 and 7 when they started. If they could do it, I can do it. I was 32. I was a stay-at-home mom, and I just had it in my heart for all those years to do it, right? So I hopped on the mat and I tried it one class. I'm like, it almost killed me, but I just knew I had to keep going. I had to keep doing it. And it was such a nice supportive atmosphere where it was like, yeah, just keep coming. Like, you're not going to be good at this for a long time. So you just have to show up. And so, here we are almost 7 years later. I'm a purple belt. I currently hold the rank of purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But also from white belt all the way through now, like I dabbled in some other stuff. So I did learn how to do some civilian Krav and like become an instructor in civilian Krav Maga. And then I actually was rooted in boxing before I ever got onto the jiu-jitsu mat. So I did some basics in boxing and a little bit of stand-up, but like jiu-jitsu stole my heart. Like, after competing, I was like, this is it. I'm doing this for the rest of my life. Like, it just brought something else out of me. And the confidence that you get in it is unlike anything else. So after I started training in some martial arts, right, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I did some Krav, and I was doing a little bit of like Eskrima, which is a Filipino martial art, stick fighting, a little bit of weapon stuff. Like, I started seeing that women were coming in and getting really attracted, right? And it was just growing where women were starting to show up. And that did something to me because I wanted to help. Like, I knew where I had been in my past and I wanted to help. So, growing up, I had a really rough childhood. I had some abuse in my past. Mental, emotional, sexual abuse happened when I was a smaller child. And then some in my teen years. I got jumped when I was in junior high. Like, I'd had all of these things happen. And then leading into adult years, like, I had one, abusive relationship after another, and I had to leave a domestic violence situation. So, fast forwarding to being 32 years old and starting martial arts, I just thought, like, this is a great way for me to get in shape and learn how to protect myself. What I didn't know was that it was going to completely change my whole life, because it actually was the thing that showed me I had PTSD, and I didn't know that. I didn't know what it was. So when I started dealing with that, and other women would come in and I would see it in them, like, I would recognize this thing, this unspoken monster, and I would say, oh gosh, that's me. So let me help them. And it's one of the things that kept me in jiu-jitsu. And it's one of the things that to this day, I think is the biggest gift that jiu-jitsu has given me, is being able to recognize this thing in other people. And while I'm healing, I'm also helping you heal. Like, it's just a beautiful thing. So that's where I'm at now. I love teaching women and children, and I love seeing that confidence come out of somebody, those aha moments, and seeing someone learn for the first time, hey, I've got this condition, right? And also learn, like, I can control this. I can learn how to control my own body and have some boundaries. And that's just my heart.
Yeah, that's amazing, because we often talk about too, even once you go inner and heal yourself, you'll notice that there's little triggers, and you then become your best teacher, because you're sitting there and you're like, why do I act like this? why does my body, what triggered me to feel that way? So once you start to heal yourself and recognize those emotions and the trauma, then you find different coping mechanisms. But even just dealing with it, and even how you turned to something now that is your career, and it's amazing because now you can give the gift that keeps giving, to helping heal others recognize that in themselves and find a way to share your story as well as help them heal themselves. So that's amazing.
Yes, it has been. It's been an incredible journey, and it is a lifelong journey, right? When you decide to get into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, either you stop after a few classes, you stop after you get your blue belt, which is a big joke, or you keep going and you ride this journey out, and it's a lifelong thing. And no matter what happens, you might stop for a little while, take little breaks, but you always get back to it all the way through. Like, it's just a lifelong thing. And you discover so much about yourself in this way that I had never experienced before. Like, I had been to therapy, I had, I go to church, like I've done all the things, but what jujitsu does is it makes you do things like physically, right? It's a physical expression. And it's an art. So I'm a hands-on learner. And there are things that I would connect the dots to that are these big life lessons on the mat. And then I would leave with this epiphany, or like a realization or a self-realization. And one of the first one was, oh my gosh, like, I have PTSD. What is this? I thought that was just what veterans get. I didn't know that was something that I could have. And I didn't understand it. So I had to go deeper and look further into that thing. And I'm so thankful for that, because like, people are like, oh wait, isn't that scary? You have men sitting on top of you. And like, the thing I always say though is like, look, yeah, it's weird. Sometimes weird things happen. Sometimes like somebody's sweat gets in your eye or mouth. I've swallowed hair off the mat. Like, there's weird stuff, right? It's gross. It's uncomfortable, to say the least. It can be painful. But then the bomb that I drop is like, look, you don't get to choose if somebody attacks you. You don't get to choose what that situation looks like, where it happens, how it happens, if you're on, how uncomfortable you are, how disgusting that person might be. So when you put it in terms of that, like, you have to find value in yourself. And this is where I start training jiu-jitsu, this is a little bit different from what a lot of instructors might do, but I train self-defense here. First, it is a mental, and then emotional, and then a physical. Like, you have to change your mindset. You have to believe that you're worth it, and you have to be willing to put in the work and physically like do the work, because that's the only way it works in jiu-jitsu. Like, you cannot come in here and buy a belt. Like, you have to put in the hard work for years. Like, I'm only a purple belt, yes, but I've been training for 7 years. So to give you a perspective of how long it might take, like, it could take 10, 15 years to get a black belt.
And that's a long time, but that's hard work and dedication. Like, that's a lot to be proud of.
Yeah.
But going off of the mental health, and I know one of your most recent posts that I want to tie back to, and I'm going to read it directly off of there because I don't want to mess it up, because it's such a powerful post. So, and we'll share her Instagram handle and all of that later in the show and in the show notes. But if we can go into mental health, and the statement that you just also made is, would you fight for something that you didn't love, care for, or respect for, or have respect for? Probably not. The beginning of self-defense is self. Love yourself as though you are worthy. If we can go more into that post, because so many, especially in this generation, so many people you see, like, people pushing self-love, and they just want to look at, oh, just everything's so glitz and glam and perfect, but they don't show you the other side and the mental health aspect, or what self-love truly looks like, and setting those boundaries. So I love your post because you break it down and you literally say, no, this is okay to do this. So if we can just go into a little bit of that mindset and how you teach and share that as well on your page and what you do as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I like to do this in discussion. I almost bait people. Like people come in sometimes and they're like, oh, sorry, they're like, I just want to do jiu-jitsu. Let's just get and roll around on the ground. I'm like, okay. Let's hold on a second. Back it up. Like, why? Why are you here? And there's almost always a why. There's almost always for females coming into jiu-jitsu a reason. Now, that's not everyone. There are some women who just come in, they love the sport, they train, some of them fight MMA. But even in MMA, I've had women come to me and say, like, well, this happened to me and I didn't say no and I didn't fight back, or I couldn't, or I froze. And so I always teach where you have to go back into that, like tap into why you're here. And if you really dig in, you will find a reason. Even if you come in saying like, oh, I don't really know, I just want to do something fun, or I just want to do something new, like you will actually find a reason. And a lot of people do hide that. They really hide that. And I think honestly, God gifted me with the ability to kind of see through things and really see people, like really look at people and see something more. And it's probably because of my life experience and the fact that I've been through things and I tried to hide it and hide it and hide it. But when you hide that, I think sometimes we can hide behind the like, okay, self-love means self-care. Go get your hair and your nails done. Go get, some liposuction. And I'm not downing any of that stuff. What I'm saying is like, that becomes a mask for the more that's behind it, because what's going on, I don't care about what your face looks like. Like, I think people are beautiful, inherently beautiful. So like, I want to know what's going on in your heart. I want to know what's going on in your mind, because what's going on in your heart overflows to your mind, and what's going on in your mind becomes your words, and your words become your actions. Okay. So let's back that up into self-defense. If you don't have a deep love and respect and reverence for yourself, you're not going to set boundaries. And if you can't set boundaries, so I was a correctional officer, and when you're working around criminals, they literally practice how to deceive people, and they're good at it. They are good at practicing. How can I finesse? How can I finesse? How can I trick you? How can I make you trust me? And they will do the tiniest things to test. How can I trust? How can I trick you? How can I get you to trust me? And it's like, there are all these steps and these red flags, which I get into in my classes, and I'm going to actually start getting into on my like YouTube and everything. But you have to be able to know yourself and love yourself enough to say, I feel uncomfortable. And because I feel uncomfortable, I'm going to tell you, bro, I feel uncomfortable. You need to back up. Yeah. And what happens is a lot of times women and girls, we grow up like, shh, like you don't say that. You don't talk like that. You don't speak. Why don't you quiet your voice? You're being too loud. That's not nice. Yeah, like be polite. And the thing is that we're being taught literally to be silenced. Yeah. And I remember when I was raped when I was 17, he was telling me in my ear, this is your fault. This is your fault. I was completely incapacitated. Like when I woke up, I realized I was being raped, just because I woke up and I was in a cold room, and all I could feel was pain, and I couldn't even locate where the pain was coming from at first. And then when I did, I started to cry, and then he's telling me, shut up. This is your fault. What happened was I believed that, because I was conditioned to believe that. So I shut my mouth. I didn't say a word again. And I didn't do anything until I was told I was allowed to. And if it means that me saying like, no, back up, bro, you're in my space, get out of my face, I'm uncomfortable. If that means I'm a bitch, well, I'll be a bitch. I will, because look, I have the right to tell you what happens with my body. But it's not until you love yourself enough to know what's going on in your body. And this is something jiu-jitsu did for me. I didn't know I was having a panic attack. I thought it was normal for me to feel in panic 24/7. I had anxiety growing up. I didn't know that. I didn't know what anxiety felt like, because it was just my normal. So how do you tell somebody who is used to feeling anxiety, oh, you have anxiety? Like, oh, that's just anxiety. And when you put a name to it, there's freedom behind that. I have PTSD. What? I'll never forget the first time I heard the term gaslighting. I didn't know that was a thing. And when I found out that was a thing, I was set free. I was like, I'm not crazy. You mean I'm not crazy? There's a term.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
It's yeah. So I like to really dig deep with my ladies, and I really like to put those questions out there. So the trick is they're in here for jujitsu, but really what happens is after class, I'm like, how'd you guys feel? What did that do to you? Do you guys have any thoughts? And as soon as I hear something, I get it. Somebody the other day, they were like, well, like, I don't feel so sure about doing this thing. Why don't you feel sure or confident in that? It's your body. Why don't you feel confident doing that? Oh, well, I don't know. And as soon as they start to engage in this conversation, they're telling me their story without telling me their story.
Yep.
And then I'm able to say, okay, this is what I want you to work on, because you got to trust yourself, girlfriend. And you don't trust yourself, who's going to trust you? You got to be able to trust yourself. Because I could teach you, and I say this in seminars and in class all the time, I could teach you all the techniques in the world. Somebody could teach you all the techniques in the world. You could learn from a red coral belt, okay? And still, if you are terrified and you have no confidence and you do not love or respect yourself, you probably won't use any of that technique. Maybe, there's a chance maybe you will. But also, when the fight, flight, freeze happens and you've never experienced it before, it is shocking. It is shocking. It disrupts your system. And one of my points that I wanted to get to was that the people that commit these types of crimes, they are so good at what they do. They will purposefully put you in a very uncomfortable situation to see how you respond. And the thing is when we're worried about being polite and being put in someone else's society's box of what a woman should look like, we almost always go, "Ooh, this isn't really happening. This isn't really okay, what do I do?" You're assessing frame by frame as this situation is happening, as it's coming towards you. Your mind's trying to catch up. And as your mind's trying to catch up, you're like, man, I don't want to look like. That's the mistake. That's the mental self-defense right there. That's a big mistake to think to yourself, I got to be less so someone else could be more. I have to be less so that I don't make anyone else uncomfortable. Man, if you get in my space, I'll make you uncomfortable. You would believe that.
It's so true too, because even in those situations, is the body, as much as your mind is telling you one thing, the body is reacting and triggered in a different way. So until you can start to recognize and not only accept those different emotions, but heal them and deal with the trauma, then your body, you need your body, your mind, your body, and your soul all to be in alignment. Otherwise, like you said, you go into that freeze, and by then it's already too late. Somebody could be kidnapped. You could be raped. Like, you never know those situations, or you could be attacked. Like, it happens so quickly. And so that's important to deal with. And I love how you said, even teaching women through your work and everything that you do is even confidence, and teach them their worthiness, because oftentimes they're broken down and that self-confidence isn't there. And so they are such a target, and you start believing these things about yourself and thinking that you're the problem. And it's like, no, you were conditioned to be like that.
Yes. There's a lot of conditioning, and that brings me into grooming is so huge. And people think, oh gosh, well, I don't think I'm ever going to be attacked in the street. I don't need self-defense. Listen, guys, like, most attacks are in home, in a party, in the comfortable place, with the date, with the uncle, with the with the pastor, with the group youth lead, like whatever the situation, the person that knows you. And I've experienced this in my life also. Like, I was abused by a family member, and I was abused by a family friend from church. And I was, abused by a guy that I thought was my best friend in high school. So it's like the people that know you best, right? They know you. And because they know you, they actually have like the leg up on the perp that's just out there stalking around trying to find somebody, right? So the perp that's out there trying to find somebody to attack, they're probably, if you have some good confidence about yourself and you're walking about like life like you know what's going on and you're pretty aware, you're probably not going to be a good target. But if you trust this person and they have a place in your life, Now we're talking about a different type of attack. And if you don't know yourself enough to say, this feels wrong, and you don't love yourself enough to say, when something feels wrong, I have the right to say no. Now, this happens to so many children, it's teen girls. It even happens like in the workplace and with women in relationships. But like, if we can start teaching them so young that once you feel not right, even if it doesn't, maybe it's fine. Maybe it's not a situation where you're going to be attacked. Maybe this person's not meaning you any harm. Who knows? But even if you just feel funny and you don't know why, it's okay to say, I feel weird and I don't know why.
Yep.
It's okay to say, I don't want to hug that person. I don't want to shake that person's hand. I don't want to sit on their lap. I don't want to ride in a car. I don't want to stay at their house. It's okay. Like, those things are good things. You don't have to feel bad like you're not being polite because it's, Uncle so-and-so or Aunt and such, like, you have to know yourself enough to know, like, I don't feel right. And then be able to love yourself enough to say something about it. Right. So it's so important. Most attacks do happen when it's somebody that you're familiar with. And then what do? Are you going to fight somebody that you love, respect, look up to, adore? You're going to fight somebody physically when you've never been in that situation before? It's a shock. It is a shock to your system. You have to know that. It is a shock to your system. And I say that because I have lived it. And so now I have built up 7 years of muscle memory in martial arts. Now my body's going to react whether my mind goes blank or not. I've competed in 19 competitions. I have, done a lot of work in the realm of martial arts to where now my body just reacts. It just reacts, even if it's like in play or something, right? I'm just playing around. My body's going to react a certain way. How can you say very confidently that you're going to be able to know what your body's going to do when you've never done that? And Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, we compete and it's like full throttle, right? 5-minute round and you just give it all you got. What that does is you experience an adrenaline rush and then an adrenaline dump, and all of that fight and flight in between, and all that agility and stuff that you're doing, all the movement and the submission, all the stuff, right? And if you've never experienced that before, competing is the safest way that you can experience that without being attacked. Yeah. So it's definitely something that I say women should do at least one, kids and women should do at least one time, just experience it.
Well, it's interesting because as you were talking, I remember this quote that I heard a long time ago, and I actually follow it. It's this idea that it says, maybe you were given your mountain to show others it can be moved. Mm-hmm. And it is exactly where you sit, because you can pick up women and say, why are you here? And then when they're like, I'm not really sure, I didn't feel this, why, and you can sense it, and you can work through it, and you can help them get to where they need to be. And so I love that about your story. I hate that you had to go through it, but I love that because of it, now you get to be able to help that many more women also who may not have known why they feel this way or what happened to them or all those things. You're able to help them and build that confidence for them. And I think we just need to, we mentioned this before, is people's lack of intuition. We have literally destroyed kids' intuition. We've never said, like you said, you may not be right in this one instance that so-and-so wasn't going to hurt you. But if something made you feel bad and you had to push it down, now you're living as an adult with all of this stress, all of this anxiety, because you're a people pleaser. You're doing all of these things because you think this is what people want from you, and you don't want to look like the bad guy. You don't want to look like the mean person or whatever. And we have got to stop that. Now, we say on here, like, don't make your kids hug grandma, or don't do whatever. And I try, even myself, I try really hard not to make my boys hug grandma, but at the same time, it's like, it's grandma, like, come on. So it's not, it's the overarching reason, not the person. You've got to give them body autonomy. Not, okay, so they pissed off grandma today. Oh, sorry, grandma, they're not in the mood to hug you. Move on. But we've given our kids the ability now to say, okay, it's not grandma, it's my teacher. Or it's not grandma, it's the neighbor or whatever. And now they've already learned that no, what I feel is valid and I have a right to say.
Yes, 100%. I'll tell you the story. So I'm currently writing a book. It's based on my life, but it is about self-defense as well. And I talk about a lot of my experiences with being abused, but one experience that I have not really shared very publicly ever, except I do share it with like seminars and classes that I've taught. I was abused by a woman, by a beautiful 30-something-year-old woman that we knew from church. And it was a strange kind of situation where I didn't, of course you're a kid, you don't know you're being groomed. You don't know the difference between your sisters and your mom and, whatever. Women are women. Women get dressed in front of each other. Women, use the bathroom with it. They go in a group to the bathroom. Everybody's like, oh, okay, pretty innocent, But like, I was a baby of 6. And so I always felt like sometimes I'm flying underneath the radar. And like, when I talk about grooming, I do bring this up a lot in seminars and in classes because it's a good example of like when you're especially like a single mom or single parent, maybe a single dad as well, and you need a break. People see that. And when people are offering their help without you asking, and you don't know them very well, but they seem nice enough, it's really a red flag. It's really time for you to stop and say, why are you so adamantly offering me help? Because being nice doesn't mean you're good. And it's important to recognize, because in my case, what ended up happening was, there was something going on. I don't know what, but I know that the adults in my life needed us to not be at the home. So they would allow us to stay the night. And this person offered help. And what a nice person. They're from church. And it's a woman, right? And people have this misconception that women also don't get into pedophilia. They do. Yeah. They do. And so, she's a married woman and whatever, and she's watching us. But she also was changing her clothes and getting completely naked in front of me. Only me, just me. Changing her clothes in front of me, walking around, naked and doing things like this. And I, of course, as a child, you don't know about grooming. Now as an adult, I look back and I'm like, that would not fly with me. Some woman gets naked in front of my daughter. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. This would not happen, right, with my kids. But like you said, I lived this experience and it's terrible that it happened, but now I get to say like, look, that's a red flag. Like you have to be able to say, this is weird and this happened. The kids, when you're told, like you said, like just hug this person, just do that, you're going to be disrespectful. You're thinking about the way you look. You're not thinking about the way your kid feels. You're thinking about what it makes you look like, because you think that whatever your child does is a direct reflection of who you are as a person and as a parent. Okay. And that is just, let's get over that. Let's get over that right now. Okay. Nobody is perfect and nobody is a perfect parent. And nobody is a perfect child. But in my case, this woman was grooming, and it flew under the radar. And when she finally carried out on the assault part, I was so conditioned. I didn't know I had been assaulted until I was an adult. And I had a flashback and I had a complete PTSD breakdown. And the flashback made me think, why was I naked? Why was I on the bed? Why did she tell me to come alone in this room? Why did she put an object inside of me that I did not know? I did not know why, but I believed whatever she had told me. I'm going to give you medicine. So just lay there and I'm going to give you medicine. And I'm like, how does that fly under the radar? How does this kind of thing happen? I never told a soul until I was an adult, because I did not know that what had happened was wrong until I was an adult. Now we have this kind of thing happening a lot with single parent homes and children who are missing a mother or father figure. And so if you think about like kids, when they have both parents in home and maybe even the situation is absolutely perfect, yes, they can still be conditioned to allow people to touch their body in a way that, they're just not comfortable, whether it's a handshake, a hug, or something more. Now take that and think about somebody who is already walking around with a part of their identity that is missing because they don't have a parent in the home. or maybe they don't have both parents, or maybe their parents are drug addicts or in jail, or who knows, whatever the case could be. Now, this child really is at risk, right? This is really at risk. And people know, like the people that want to hurt your children, they know that child's at risk. So there's grooming. If you don't know about grooming, go out and find out, read a book, get some resources, email me, email you guys. I don't know, get some resources because it's important to know the red flags. Oh, you know what? The Gift of Fear, it's okay for me to say that. This is a huge resource that I love. Gavin DeBecker is a psychotherapist, and the book, The Gift of Fear, gives so many examples of red flags. It's not a book for children, but I think every parent should read that book.
Yeah, we'll definitely add it to the show notes and link it for everyone listening, especially because red flags are such a huge thing to learn. If you could do one thing, learn about the red flags and what grooming is, what it looks like. As we often talk about on our podcast, is how do you parent in this day and age, especially with social media and pedophilia and grooming at an all-time high, without wrapping your kids in bubble wrap. And it can happen to anyone and everyone. It doesn't just happen in third world countries. It doesn't just happen in Hollywood and Disney, as we see is in the news, grooming children. We all experience some level of conditioning and grooming, whether it's from our own families to the television to the music. There's so much grooming going on. So what would be, especially to some advice, and even parents who want to look at getting their kids into self-defense, like what age would you suggest starting, even having that conversation or even taking classes?
I just started being so open about things at a very young age. And I remember I used to get kind of like funny looks and some people had opinions about the way that I was mothering, but coming from my past, there was probably a lot more healing that I needed to do, right, in order to parent without the bubble wrap. But the way that I did it, I'm very confident in. I just talked as age appropriately as I could, and always let my children know that they could literally talk to me about anything and it wouldn't shock me. And, it was because I had been through so many things. I knew that it wasn't going to shock me. And I was just open with them. Like when they had a question about their body, I answered them. I didn't make it a dirty thing. I didn't make it a weird thing. Like if you start talking to your child like, oh, that's dirty, sex is dirty, your body is dirty, this is dirty, there a devil, here a devil, everywhere a devil. When you do that, you make them literally think that their body is dirty.
Yep.
And then they feel dirty. And then it's like going to be easier for someone else to make them feel dirty and to make them feel shameful. And shame is such a huge tool that people use to abuse and to control and to manipulate. So one of my biggest pieces of advice would be leave the door open to talk about anything. It is not the teacher's job. Please don't leave it up to a teacher to teach your child about their body and sex and sexuality.
Because we're learning where that's going.
Yeah, don't leave it up to a pastor. Don't leave it up to anyone. This is our not our job, but like our opportunity. It should be our joy. It should be our privilege that we have been given the job of gatekeeper of these beautiful lives, these beautiful innocent souls, and we have the ability to help shape and guide and direct. Will you make mistakes? Absolutely, absolutely will. But allow your child to talk to you about literally anything. And there are going to be times where they're just not going to anyway. Like I experienced that with my teenager. Like I always was like, you can talk to me about anything at all. And I would share my experiences, some of my experiences in my life at like age appropriate as possible. And, I would share things like, when my oldest daughter was about 8 or 9, she started getting, developing a little early. I'm like, look, one day you're going to get a period and this is what that looks like. And this is what's going to happen, share with them about their body, because it is a beautiful, exciting time of life when you're growing into your womanhood, into your manhood. The thing is that you got to be open to hear, but you also have to know that sometimes you're not going to talk. You're not going to talk. And you got to try to listen when you can. For some reason, is a thing. Like a pastor said it one time, and I tried it out, and it really works. If you drive your child somewhere in a car, just you and them, and they're a teenager or a preteen, sometimes they just start talking to you. Like all of a sudden, they're just like dropping these bombs on you and telling you all about such and such that happened at school. Listen, even if you think it's like, oh gosh, I don't want to hear about another drama, especially with girls. No, listen, make it your privilege. That's probably one thing I wish I would have done a little differently, honestly, the first time around, was listen more and talk less. Make it so that children feel like they literally can tell you anything, and you're not going to be shocked, and you're not going to be disappointed, and you're not going to be, like freaked out. Because when you freak out, they stop talking. So that's probably the biggest advice I can give.
And that's what actually what I was going to say too, is they're telling you the minuscule stories of the day to see how you respond. Because if you respond crazy to the little stuff, and I have something big I need to tell you, I'm already not going to tell you because you freaked out over Susie's drama and it's not even my drama. Yeah. And what are we going to do with all of this? Because you're absolutely right that how do you, like, if you're spilling the milk over everything, how do you deal with the big stuff? And I've talked about this before on here is are you giving, like, every night I give my boys like 10, 15 minutes of my time. Most of the time it's nonsense. It is whatever goofy video game they played or whatever dumb conversation they had at school and whatever, but they know that time is coming every single night. And so they wait and they store up stories that they're ready to tell me, or they have things that they're worried about, or like those are some of the deepest conversations we have, because that's all of the little stuff doesn't matter, but it's all still being listened to so that when the big stuff really comes down, you're ready for those too.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. This is honestly, guys, I'm saying it not because I'm perfect at it. I'm saying it because this was the biggest mistake I have made in motherhood, probably, was allowing my past trauma to affect that, where, something would happen and I would totally freak out. Like just do way too much. And then it was just kind of like, oh, I don't know if mom's going to freak out. And it's something that I've learned a lot, like up to now. Now I'm like, okay, let's listen, let's talk. We can talk about anything. But back then when I was a younger mom and I just didn't know, you just don't know what you don't know. I was totally freaking out over some things that I didn't need to freak out over, but I've gone to therapy. So I highly suggest therapy. That's another piece of advice. Honestly, get some therapy.
Everyone needs it. Everyone needs it.
It's so helpful. It's like a prescription. Sometimes it just doesn't work for you right away. Find the right fit. You'll get there and you'll find the right fit, and then it's going to be so helpful, and you'll get the tools that you need. Or find a support group, get the tools that you need. There's no shame in asking for help, especially in parenting.
Now, what are some other things that you do in your day-to-day life when dealing with adversity, or if you are having those struggles, whether it's in your own personal things, or when it comes to parenting? What are some, whether it's journaling, or we know what your main one is, but what are some other things that you do to help you with that?
Right now, I actually run a challenge called Daily Declarations, because it's something that was like, I'm going to do this thing. And then as I started doing it, I realized it was bigger than me and it could help other people. So I started doing it. But there are a lot of tools that I've gotten from therapy. Yes, writing is one of them. So I am writing a book, but I do journal. And then also I make sure that I'm declaring positive things over my life. And instead of like allowing the negative stuff to bubble up and the negative words to come from my mind out of my mouth, I catch it. This is what I've been doing lately. I catch it and I've been leading other women in it. And we just replace that lie. We replace that narrative. We replace it with a truth. So being able to stop the lie or just stop it before it comes out of your mouth, because we create what we say. Okay, I fully believe it. We create what we say. So if you allow yourself to sit back and repeat the old broken record, that old narrative of I'm too much, I'm too little, I say this and it's stupid, or I'm dumb, or I'm never going to finish anything, I'm never going to lose weight, I'm never going to get to what I want, do what I want to do, I'm going to be broke for the rest of my life. Instead of saying those kind of things, I stop and I say, I have exactly what I need, right? I have what I need in my hands. What do I have to do to get there? Okay, I am a good person. I am a good mom. I work really hard at doing better, at growing. And I complete the I am sentence with something powerful, because if you don't, you're going to create chaos in your life. So that is one major thing that I've been doing, especially lately within the last month. I make sure that I have a good, safe network of people, a small network of people that I can trust. And I do reach out for help when I need it. I never used to do that. I was the person that stuff. Like something would happen and I would feel a certain way, like feel bad about something, and I would just bury it, put on a smile, and keep pushing forward. This grind kind of thing, right? Like I'm a grinder. I'm a hustler. I'm going to get out here and I'm going to do my thing, and everybody's going to notice how strong and wonderful I am. The problem with that is, yes, you may look really strong and everybody's going to appreciate it. But the moment you're not strong, the moment you're not what everybody thinks that you should be, it all goes away. Everyone goes away. And I experienced this at one point in my life, even in training. I was stuffing everything. And on the inside, it was just horrible, right? Like I was depressed. I was so sad and down and depressed, and nobody knew. And the moment I couldn't be the strong Becca, the strong version of Becca that everybody wanted me to be, all the people that I thought were my people went away. And I found myself to be alone and feeling like I'm not enough. And so you have to be strong enough in yourself, confident enough. And this goes back to what we were saying earlier, right? In yourself, to know yourself. And you also have to surround yourself with few people. And I say this a lot. I'd rather have 4 quarters than 100 pennies. I want 4 shiny quarters. I don't want $100 pennies. Okay. Because the pennies are going to weigh me down. Those 4 quarters, they're bright and they're shiny and their value is higher. And so I can get value from going to these people and saying, this is what I'm going through. And I know that they're going to give me good feedback. They're going to give me constructive criticism. They're going to be honest with me, even if I don't want to hear it. And I allow myself to be coachable. So when I go to somebody, I don't go to them with a pride and an ego of, no, that's not me. I'm not going to, I don't need that. No, I'm going to go to them with my heart. And I'm going to say, this is what I'm going through. And I'm going to shut my mouth and I'm going to listen. And I'm going to take what is good and what I need. And if there's something that's maybe, I don't feel like I need it, I can put that down. But I'm going to take all the good things and I'm going to be coachable and I'm going to implement it. I'm not just going to listen. I'm not just going to ask and be an asshole and ask for help and then never do the thing that I was supposed to do. No, I'm going to listen and I'm going to take the advice. So those are really the things that I do to really get myself together. I trust my husband, who is incredibly supportive. I go to my husband, right? First, this is my line of defense. I go to my God, always first. I go to my husband. And then outside of that, I know I have a couple of really good family members and friends that I can go to, and they will be there with me and they will be there to support me. They'll be there to pray with me. They'll be there to give me advice. They'll be there. I have one best friend that's been my best friend for over 20 years. I want to say 27 years now. She will curse me out if I need to be cursed out. And it's okay. I give people permission to say and be upfront with me, to say, like, I see this happening and I'm a little worried. I'm a little concerned, because there was a time in my life where I did not give people permission to do that. And I ended up alone. So.
Well, to the accountability of it all and being able to do that for one another. You don't want someone in your circle who's just always agreeing with you.
Great.
And you're great, because it's like, then where's the growth? How are you helping one another? And so knowing that you have that circle that you can hold each other accountable, that's huge, because most people don't have that. And they are, like I often say, is what's normal in my house isn't normal in the next person's, and so forth. So a lot of people don't realize, even if it comes to toxic relationships, that's toxic because of the environment that they grew up around, and that was normal in their house. But then as they get older and they're dealing with the trauma and healing, they realize that was very toxic and the whole toxicity of it. And so just even recognizing like that normal is different in everyone's eyes, but also going back, like even to abusive situations, and don't get me wrong, everyone has their different conditions that they're in and situations, but like for me, I'll use myself for example. If I finally got to a point where I was like, I'm enabling this, I'm allowing myself to be disrespected and to be treated like this, so I'm enabling this person to think that it's okay, and really I'm just hurting myself. And so then once I got myself out of those situations, it really does change, because it's like, no, that means you just need to love yourself even more, because then you don't want your kid to think that that's okay and that's normal. And so even recognizing that and changing it, it takes a lot and it's emotional roller coaster, but you have to face it and deal with it, because if not, then you just keep enabling it. And then people think that they can just take you for granted or walk all over you because you don't set those boundaries. And it's okay. Like for me, I had to learn, once I learned to say no, whether even if it was family, like trying to be there and help everyone and do all that, then it got to a point where you would even drain yourself by always giving, giving. And then you can't give because now you're empty. And then now you're risking your health, not only mentally, but physically, spiritually, everything. And so now it's no longer in alignment because you're trying to just be there for family out of respect or whatever the situation may be. So even learning to say the words no, like that is okay.
Yes, that is self-care. That is self-care.
Right, exactly. Okay, that was weird. But one of the things that, because when we were talking about everybody going to therapy and doing all that, my husband and I went to therapy, and there was so many things that, because I would hold on to stuff and not tell about what it is I'm going through, even if it was little, he would assume it was him, that it was something he did. And we really, I think I'm going to be kind of gender whatever and say women are very much the ones that do all this, where we just take it on and take it on and take it on, and then we blow up because no one knew that all of the 50 things were happening. And so I always describe it to people, I'm like, you just keep putting pebbles in your pockets, and then somebody, and you keep sinking and sinking and sinking, instead of saying, you know what, man, my boss really ticked me off today, and take a handful of pebbles out of your pocket. Or this thing happened today and it really bothered me, and take another handful of pebbles out of your pocket. But instead, we don't talk to anybody. We don't journal. We don't have conversations, whether it's with your spouse or a friend, because you just don't think it's important enough to speak about it. But it is weighing you down. And then people who are relying on you come up to you and say, here, hold my brick. And you're like, I am holding 50 pounds of pebbles in my pockets, and now you want me to hold your brick. And they're like, I didn't know you had any problems. I had no idea. And for me, I ended up over the last couple years, like I burned myself out. It was so defeating to be alone, learning all of this new stuff and not having close friends. And now I have some of the best friends, but I had to go and undo everything and relearn stuff and start to say, you know what? This bugs me, or I didn't like that. And just really, even with, like Bridget said, with your own family, with your friends, like you're always one where you're like, I don't want to rock the boat, or I don't want to say anything. And I really mostly don't mind rocking the boat, but that thing I don't really want to say. And then you get to a point where you never get to say anything.
Yeah. Okay, let's break down the self-defense in that. Cool. There was a lot. You said so much, and it was like that. One of the first things that got my attention was, you're holding all these things and nobody knows, and then you just don't want to say anything. Okay, where does that come from? Now, let's dig this well. Okay, let's get the root. Where does that come from? Why? Who told you that you can't say, this is bothering me? Like, why are we not just saying it in the moment? And you said, I'm going to be gender, whatever. Like, yeah, but it is very common for females to not say. And somebody said this one time, and I can't remember if it was something I listened to or watched or what it was, a book maybe, but I just remember somebody had said, like, how come it's women? I don't know if you understand this, but like, if you recognize this, but a lot of women, when you're walking somewhere and someone's passing by closely to you, you say, excuse me, excuse me.
Yep.
And you're asking to be excused because somebody else almost bumped you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting that what goes into that. And then, like, you also said, like, you just don't say anything, and then you just don't speak up, and then you never say anything. Well, let's dissect that. Okay. When you train yourself to bury and to be the strength and to be the pillar, and I'm going to carry out everybody's stuff on my back, and I'm going to be that person. Why? It goes to identity. If you don't have a strong, firm foundation and identity, and you don't love that person and have confidence in that person, then you're going to want to be all things for all people. Why? So that people accept you. You want to be accepted. This is the root problem. You want to be accepted. Well, what happens when you are so worried about being accepted that you don't say no to the person who makes you feel uncomfortable, that you don't say no to the guy that wants to kiss you on the first date and you're uncomfortable, when you don't say no to the friend who wants you to watch her kids every single day and you just got your own kids, your own stuff going on. Like, people will use and abuse you. And then when you say no, all of a sudden, I'm a bitch.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Right.
We didn't love ourselves enough way back there with the first pebble. We didn't love ourselves enough way back there, or have enough confidence to use our voice and to let our voice come out. Look, there's polite ways to say no. If you really, be polite. You don't have to be rude. No is not a 4-letter word, and it is not rude. It's actually loving. Saying no in the right time, in the right way, is one of the most loving things that you can do for yourself and for other people. Why? Because why are you saying yes? Do you have an expectation that somebody is going to give you love or respect or affirmation because you did that thing for them? That's not real love. Guys, like, love is an overflow of what's already there. You're so full that you're spilling over, and now you can give back. That's what giving should be. You should not have conditions and expectation attached to favors. Like, if I want to do something for you, I want to do it because I love you and I see you, and I'm just going to do it. And I'm not going to expect anything in return. Like, when I do things for people, I just do it because I just want to do it. And if I don't want to do it, then I could say the no. Like, I could say no. And it's just so, without an excuse. And I don't need to make up I don't need to make a lie. Like, oh my, my kid's sick, and oh my gosh, my husband said, oh, no, I can't help you out. And if you're not sure, if you can help someone or not, it's you know what? I'm willing to help you in whichever way I can. So go ahead and ask me. But if I can't, then I'm going to say no. And I used to be offended over that. But even our offense, down to our own choosing to be offended, that also comes from a lack in identity. It is because you don't know who you are that you feel like you have to be offended every single time somebody says no, or somebody has constructive criticism for you, or even if even if it's not constructive, even if they're actually being rude. Do you have to feel offended? Is it true? If you know who you are and what they said isn't even true and it has nothing to do with you, and it should be no big deal, I could roll that off my shoulder. But when I'm walking around like I'm an orphan, and I'm walking around because I got abused, and I have a mom and a dad, and all this stuff happened to me, and I'm giving myself an excuse to be less because of my circumstances from my past that I couldn't control, instead of growing. Growth hurts. It hurts. It doesn't matter what you do. If it's a seed in the ground, it has to push through the dirt. If you're growing your muscles, they're going to rip, and then they're going to heal, and it hurts. It is a hurtful process sometimes. So when somebody says something to you and it hurts you or offends you, stop for a second and dig to the root. What is the root? Is it because I'm lacking identity and confidence in myself? Is that why I'm hurt because you said no? Or, am I feeling like I'm going to miss something out? in this coaching program that I'm a part of, they literally, they say all the time, there's no FOMO here. There is no fear of missing out. We don't need to fear missing out. It's really not a thing. Like, there's enough for everyone. Cheer each other on. And I just, yeah, I went off into a whole tailspin, but like, you can really see the need for self-defense, that mental emotional, right? That mental emotional healing that has to happen so that you can do something as simple as saying no. Something as simple as saying no. It's an incredible process.
It isn't just, right. It isn't just kicking someone's butt, because you're absolutely right. You have to be, you can't defend yourself if, like Bridget started with, if you don't feel worthy enough to be defended.
No, right? If you walk around with your head hung low and you believe all the lies that you were ever told, I'll use myself for an example. For many, many years, I got into one relationship after another that was just completely toxic, whether it was romantic or business or training or friendships or whatever it was. It was toxic. And I had to, at some point, recognize the hurt and the brokenness inside of me. Broken people break people, hurting people hurt people. You carry it around with you everywhere you go. We've all heard these things, right? Misery loves company, because there's truth to it. When you're all gross inside, like, that's what, it goes from your heart to your head, and then it comes from your head to your mouth, and you create that situation, and you hang around people who are similar to you. And if you want to, somebody, I forgot who this quote is from, but they say, if you want to see who you are, look at people that you hang out with, basically. And if you're hanging around people, that are just living a certain way, then you have to look at that and you have to be accountable to it. Now, you're putting yourself in dangerous situations every day without even knowing it, because you're not willing to do the hard work of looking inside of yourself, of just being alone with yourself. Do you know, like, my oldest daughter, there was just like a lot of things that went on. She suffered with some stuff with, her father just not being in her life. And there was just a lot that happened throughout her life where I could see these things starting to grow. And it was so hard for me, because, like, I just wanted to protect her all of the time. Right? I was the bubble wrap mom for that first one. Yeah. And I could just see it in her, this deep, deep pain and lack of identity in this area. And later on, like more recently, she did tell me, Mom, none of it was your fault. Nothing. It was nothing that you did. It was just that I need to know that part of me. I have to know that part of me. And I didn't get that. I was hurt and I was offended, because here I am pouring myself out so that my children can have everything I never had. And I'm going from one toxic thing to the next toxic thing. My children are watching me do this. They're lacking identity already from those, father wounds. And here I am, and I find myself, without the ability to tell people no on simple things. And now, instead of spending time with my children, I'm helping out at church, and I'm teaching this class, and I'm doing this thing, and I'm getting at 5 a.m. and I'm not going to bed until midnight, and all things for all people. Why? Because Becca wanted to feel accepted, because Becca thought that I was going to miss out, because Becca thought that, if I say no, somebody's going to get mad at me, and then I'm not going to be a part of community anymore. And it is our deep desire as people to be a part of community, to be a village. So it's just so important that knowing yourself, okay, back to that first thing that we said, self-defense starts with self. Starts and ends right here. If you cannot see that, it doesn't matter what you come and learn on the mats, whatever your art is, whether if you do martial arts, even if you do gun training, weapons training, whatever it is, it might make you feel powerful for a little while, but you cannot walk around with a mask. Like, you have to do the hard work of really growing, of really changing. And I can tell you, I tell people this all the time. If you knew me yesterday, you do not know me today. If you knew me a year ago, you really do not know me. Let me reintroduce myself to you, because I'm not ever going to be the same. I'm not going to be stagnant. I'm not going to allow myself to sit back in my pain and my wallowing from all the years of abuse. No, I have a story, and it's powerful. There is beauty in ashes. There is power in your story and your message. And so if you allow yourself to do the work of healing what's going on in here, oh my goodness, imagine what you can do eventually. If you have the heart to help people, you can't help people when you're a mess. Right. But imagine what you can do after, like, giving yourself one hard year of looking inside. Just one hard year of just looking inside, which is what I'm just coming out of therapy. And then what can you do beyond that? Like, it's going to be incredible.
And how many people you change because of it. And that's not the intent. The intent is fully to look inside and do whatever. But even with the Easter weekend, I was at my parents' and we're going on a family trip in June, and we go every 3 years. And I am usually the one who takes over all of the planning. I'm the one who leads it. I'm the one who does all the stuff. This year, I'm like, nope, I'm over it. I'll go, but I am not going to take that. I don't have time. Not even that I don't have time. I don't want to. I just want to show up. And so I even said, I was like, well, what do you care what we do on this day or this day? Nope. I just want to show up and go on vacation. And she says to me, she's like, wait, you're not going to be the leader of all of this? And I was like, no, not at all. And that's all I had to say. She kind of looked at me like, I don't know this Becky. She doesn't really like this Becky so much because this Becky is a whole lot different than 2 years ago Becky. But she's starting to figure it out and she also herself is starting to go on a journey because she's seeing that the work actually helps. And that's what is important.
Yes.
It's changing my boys, it's changing my mom, and I don't do it for them, but
they see it.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, when the birds lead and you see them in this V formation, and that first bird is just flapping their wings and the other birds are kind of following, but they're following in the V formation. And what's said is that first bird, all the birds, they're flapping, like the other ones behind are catching the wind, and their ride is a little bit easier. And here's the thing about it is that, you're doing it for yourself, but do you like Becky this year versus Becky last year?
Heck yeah.
Hell yeah. Right?
Yeah, hell yeah.
They're gonna see that you like you more. And then it's like, it hurts you initially, right? Because we have wounds. We have wounds, and we have this, well, is it because you're mad at me? Is it because you this? No, honey, I love you. And guess what? You're going to figure it out. You're going to be great at leading this, but it's not me this year. I just want to prick. I just want to enjoy myself. And they're going to see that there's like, you have a freedom. You have a freedom that they don't have right now. And it's going to feel good when they experience that for the first time. Like, I don't hit people upside the head with the Bible, but I love me some Jesus Christ. Okay. And
Amen.
When I just go and live my life, like if I just go live my life, I don't have to tell anybody that. Here's a secret. Like, I can actually just live my life, and then people are going to be like, why are you okay right now? Like, why are you happy? And why do you have joy? And why do you have peace? And then I get to say, this is what I've done, and it's your choice if you want to do it. If you want to do it, you don't want to do it, I still love you. It doesn't, it's all good. Your choice, right? But when people see freedom, they are attracted to it. They're attracted to it. It is a, billion-dollar industry to be in motivation. And the thing is that motivation alone just doesn't work. You have to, you'll feel motivated for a time, but if you're still the old you with all the wounds, you're gonna fall back into the pit. So if you don't do the work and really forgive the people and forgive yourself. I love Lisa Nichols, and I'm gonna kind of misquote her a little bit, but I was listening to her yesterday. She says this thing that's like, you can't be all things for all people. First, you have to help yourself, and then you can go back and help those people. But first, you have to die to like everything that anybody knows what you are. You have to be willing to die to whoever it is today and become something brand new. And guess what? People are not going to like it. They're not going to like it. But in order to be able to go back and help someone else, you have to get through the door. You have to get out of the pit. You have to get out of that hole. If you can't get out, how are you going to throw a rope for anyone else? Like, you can't. You literally can't. So being able to do the work here, it starts like mental and emotional. The things you say, the things you feel, think, and say matter so much more than that physical technique. Now, the physical technique, it is fun, and it is the good stuff. I love it. It's so much fun to choke people. I mean, that sounds really crazy, right? But it's so much fun to learn how to do these submissions, to have the freedom of feeling like I'm a smaller person and this big person's on top of me, and I can sweep them, get them off me. I can choke them. I can submit. It's so freeing, right? Physically. but it is also really hard work. And if you don't work on yourself enough, you'll almost always quit
Yeah.
because you're going to feel defeated, and you're going to have to get okay with feeling uncomfortable and defeated in order to get to the other side, to get through the tunnel into the light. Like, you have to be okay with being uncomfortable and dying to every form of what you thought you were. Like, you have to.
Love that. Now, what are some resources for anyone in your area if they wanted to take classes, and then where can they find you on social media for more information?
So I teach currently women's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at Aries Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Roseville, California. I'm in Northern California out here. So I also do know many black belts and practitioners all over, honestly, all over and I can help people find places, but there are so many great jiu-jitsu places. So if you go to BJJ Girls Rule on Instagram, sometimes I'm shouting out different locations of different places. If you're in the Roseville, Rockland, Sacramento area, please come on in and train at Aries. We love having new people to train with here, and we have many black belts and upper belts that are ready to help you. And we have women's classes every Monday morning and Friday morning, 10:30 a.m. until 12 noon. It's taught by myself and my black belt professor, Manny Moreno. And you can find me also on Everyday Self-Defense on YouTube and Instagram. So BJJ Girls Rule on Instagram and Everyday Self-Defense on YouTube and on Instagram. And I don't have a website yet, but I am working on it. I'm working on so many things. I'm going to run a challenge for self-defense, and we're going to start with mental self-defense on Facebook, on Everyday Self-Defense Facebook group. So that's where you can find me. And, also I like to just drop this. If you are in the Placer County area, please, and you need help with, like, maybe you're leaving domestic violence, you're leaving a human trafficking situation, or have been sexually assaulted or had any sort of violent attack, of course, please contact a local authority and go through the process. It is important to get paper documentation to help protect yourself. But you can also reach out for resources through Stand Up Placer. Visit their website. If you just Google Stand Up Placer, even, you can find them. They're an incredible resource in this area. And then, of course, if you're, it's more international, RAIN, RAIN.org is a great organization that also gives a lot of resources and help.
Thank you so much. And we'll make sure to link all of that in the show notes as well. And again, if you are struggling with whether it's mental health or you want to find a community to connect with, feel free to reach out to any of us. Click the links in Becky and my bio. We have a Telegram group. We have a survivors group. Feel free to reach out again to any of us three, even if you just need someone to talk, or you feel like you're alone. We're here to show love and support, and even just to listen. So just know that you're not alone. And on that note, if we can go into, if you had 30 seconds, the world's attention for 30 seconds, what would you say?
I have the words. Okay, so this is what I end most of my classes and seminars with. I would say, look into my eyes. This is really important. I like to make eye contact, but since we're just voices here, listen to my voice. You are important. You are incredible. You are an incredible creation that is unique, like a fingerprint. No one else can ever replace you. You're irreplaceable. So no matter what has been said to you, just believe this and cling to this. You are worthy. Your life is valuable, and you are worth saving. So always fight in any way you need to save your life.
Thank you for that. And thank you again for joining us. We look forward to more conversations. And thank you, honestly, for just even opening this conversation and being comfortable to share even your own personal experiences so others can relate and even know that they're not alone, as it takes a lot of courage. And sorry for everything that you've endured, and you even just your growth and now showing others and helping others find their voice as well and to stand in their truth.
Yes. Thank you guys so much for having me and giving me a platform to share. This is something I haven't done in quite a while. So being able to share it again, it just feels so good and right. And I thank you guys for what you're doing and the ability to come out here and talk about these things. A lot of people don't want to talk about it, but this is how we end it. This is how we stop it. This is how we fight, by speaking up, by using our words, by healing so that we can find our voice, really. Thank you.
Amen.
Amen. When does it stop? When each and every single one of us have the courage to stop looking away and turning a blind eye. When you start to listen and when you start to stand by the survivors, when you start to hold people accountable, and when you can fathom this level of evil does exist. When you become uncomfortable, when you start to have these conversations in your own home, and when you start listening, believing, protecting the children by taking a stand. When you say, am I a part of the problem? When you face that mirror and start to hold family, people, friends accountable. When you put down your smart devices and listen to your children and learn to be present. As you don't live in the world you think you do. Together, we must rise for the children. It starts with one person. It starts with you. Don't wait until it's someone you know. Don't wait until it's too late and suicide has been committed in which you now wish you would have listened. It's never too late to do what's right. Survivors, as always, we see you, we hear you, we stand by you. You are not alone. Sending you love, light, and blessings. Love, Save Our Children podcast.